Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. I'm GC Smith, and today we're going to be taking a look at the data mined PvP talents for druids in World of Warcraft Legion. I have just a couple of notifications before we go any further in discussing the talents today. First, all of these talents are from early beta that's been data mined, so a lot of these talents can and probably will change from now until live. Secondly, no one actually has access to the live servers, so all of this information being data mined, I'm going to have to use images from various things to kind of show you the information. So I could get a few things wrong because the data mine could be slightly wrong, but hopefully everything is correct as of the time of this filming. So with that out of the way, let's get straight to the discussion of the talents. So first things first is that the first two rows of talents in the PvP talent tree are currently shared between every single class and are rather more spec dependent, at least in the terms of the second row. But in the first row we have our first talent as Gladiator's Medallion. Removes all movement impairing effects and all effects which cause loss of control of your character on a 2-minute cooldown and is instant cast. Basically this allows you, if you choose to take it, to not have to equip a PvP trinket and instead use other trinkets that actually boost your power if you choose to take this one, so you still have control of your character. It's quite a cool talent, but it does kind of make humans kind of seem a bit rubbish with their racial talent, so maybe that'll get changed at some point. The second talent in the first row is Adaption. All loss of control effects with a duration of 5 seconds or longer will be removed shortly after being applied. This effect has a 1.5 minute cooldown. Personally, I don't really think much of this ability. It's more for those who are a bit lazy and don't want to have to activate their medallions, or I guess who want to have two types of effects, so they have their own trinket, medallion, and this talent. But I generally don't like it. Firstly, it can only be used on... It only has an effect, against CC with 5 seconds or longer. Which in PvP, 2-second CCs or 3-second CCs sometimes have to be got rid of. And in that sense, I'd rather have the trinket. Yes, it does have a shorter cooldown by 30 seconds, but I'm not really sure that's a big enough issue, big enough advantage over taking Gladiator's Medallion. And then the final one in this row is Relentless, which reduces the incoming effect of all CC by 25%. I like this a lot more than the Adaption. If you're going to go for something passive, I'd rather just have it effective against all CC rather than just little bits here and there. And probably is slightly better for mindless battleground grinding when you don't have to worry about activating trinkets. Still, obviously, the Gladiator's Medallion seems to be the best of the talents in that row, but I could be wrong. So next up, in the second row, each of the talent choices, out of the 3 choices you can have, each of the choices is dependent on your spec, I believe, so whether you're DPS, tank, or healer. So I'm just going to go over all 3 DPS, then all 3 tank, then all 3 healer things, rather than going through this one slot at a time. So the first DPS slot is Train of Thought, which increases all damage by 15%, but cancels when you get hit. And has a cooldown effect for 8 seconds. So effectively, once you're hit, it cancels the effect for 8 seconds. This is a really cool effect. Obviously, this is much better in Battlegrounds than it is in Arenas, because in Battlegrounds, you're more likely to be able to train away on a target and not get interrupted and damage yourself. And it's obviously better for casters than melee, because melee often get hit by AoE effects where it's not that good. Interesting one. I like the fact that it's an early talent, because Battlegrounds are where you're going to be wanting to grind this, so it's quite a cool effect. The second DPS talent choice is Mind Quickness, which just increases haste by 15%. Overall, this is probably better for a lot of the melee classes than Train of Thought. You're more likely to be hit, so having a passive that's always active rather than Train of Thought can be really good. And again, for certain melee classes, this is maybe a 15% DPS increase on its own, or maybe even slightly more, because it could increase your damage from auto attacks by 15%, because you're hitting 15% more often, but also reduces cooldowns and other things. Then the final one is Initiation, which increases your critical chance by 30% on targets that are above 80% health. Basically, it gives you a burst of damage at the beginning of the fight to get your target below 80%, which can be crucial given some of the tank talents in this tier, which I will come to in a second. It's not yet implemented, so we're not really sure exactly what it does or what the symbol looks like, I guess. But overall, it's quite a nice talent and will definitely be good for certain classes, Demon Hunters, moving forward. So the first tank talent is hardiness. While above 80% health, you take 20% less damage. Like I said, with initiation having an effect to 80% health in the DPS tier, this effect is really good. While above 80% health, you take 20% less damage, which means you stay at 88% health or more for longer. It's kind of like a self-perpetuating talent. It's really good. Sure, it's not effective for a lot of the fight when you're below 80% health, but if you've got a healer on your team or you're doing your job as a tank, this is just a really good ability. The second tanking one is Reinforced Armor, which increases your health by 10%. Just a really good passive effect. And the final tanking one is Sparring, which says physical melee attacks have a 20% chance to be blunted, dealing 50% reduced damage. Again, this is just a really good ability. You take a lot less damage. Admittedly, it only has a 20% chance of happening, but 1 in 5 attacks will do 50% less damage. And sometimes it could be really lucky and just trigger repeatedly. So I think it could be a really nice ability to see at some points. And there does apparently appear to be a second tier of tanking's talents here, but I'm not really sure whether these apply or not, but we'll cover them anyway. So the first one of the second tier in this row of tanking is Relentless Assault, which when you're attacked, you increase your damage by 3%. This lasts for 10 seconds and stacks up to 5 times. So a tank being able to increase their damage up to 15% just constantly because you're being attacked. It's an interesting ability, but I'm not too sure how I feel about it. I'm not necessarily sure how powerful this will be. Then we have Fortitude in the second one option of this, which just increases your health by 20%. This makes me believe that we won't actually see the second tier of tank talents in the beta or in live, because 20% is just twice as good as 10%. I don't know why you'd ever choose 10% over 20%. And the final one in the tanking for this tier is Soften Blows. Any non-periodic attack that deals damage less than 10% of your maximum health is completely absorbed. Quite frankly, that can be insanely broken, especially if you have lots of health. I don't see that being fair at all, that talent. When someone does less than 10% damage to you, it's ignored completely. That's silly, and I don't think that talent should be there. Especially since, a lot of classes like melee rely on their auto attacks to do a lot of damage over a long course of a fight. And so to remove all of their auto attack damage is pretty unfair. Next up, we have the first actual tier of class-specific talents. And the first one is available to all of the specs. And this is Disentanglement. Healing Touch removes all snare effects from the target. Personally, having never played Druids, I don't know how often they Healing Touch, but I can see this as being a really powerful spell because it removes all snare effects from a target and makes you really good regardless of what spec you are as a Druid in PvP. It's just absolutely good. In the next talent slot in this tier and the next choice in this row, in row 3, we have Deft Touch. Now, this is one available to all specs, I feel, or, it seems to be available for all specs. Healing Touch and regrowth cast times are reduced by 20%. So, again, it just makes you slightly better in PvP at self-healing or healing your allies because you just cast it quicker, which is always really good. The second choice in this slot is Guardian Druid only, and it's Hibernating Growth. When you remain in bear form for 10 seconds, that cast time of your next Healing Touch is reduced by 75%. Basically, it encourages staying in your form for a long time rather than just repeatedly swapping. But it does really give you encourage you to swap out a bear tank to get hit by 75% cast time reduction. Obviously, I guess that being outside of bear form could be really damaging as well because it gives your opponent the ability to catch you off guard and remove without your passives by being in bear form. So it does kind of reward and punish you. It's kind of a nice risk-reward system. And the final one in this slot is Restoration Druid only, and it's Gift of the Wild, which is interesting to see that old PvE talent becoming a PvP-only target. It's a passive that upgrades Mark of the Wild, which says Mark of the Wild also increases the target stamina by 10%, which is great. And 10% bonus to, nearly a 10% bonus to health. Not quite, because you do have some starting health without stamina, but that's still a very, very good ability. Next up, in the final slot of this row, we have a generic talent for all specs, Shape Mender. Each time you activate a shapeshift form, you are healed for 5% of your maximum health. This effect cannot occur more than once every 5 seconds. This is really good. It encourages shape-shifting, but not too much so as to be broken, because you can only do it once every 5 seconds. It also kind of punishes you, I guess, in case you shape-shift into a bad form at the time, because you're kind of locked in for 5 seconds, otherwise you don't get any benefit from switching. Still, it's a nice ability to see, kind of cool to see. Then we have a Feral unique one to this slot, which is Leader of the Pack. Shred heals all nearby allies within 0 to 40 yards for a certain amount, which says 1 plus 200% spell power, but I imagine this will change in beta. Quite a cool ability that a primary damage ability heals your allies. Really good in Battlegrounds and can be actually quite good in Arena as well. And the final one in this slot and this row is Toughness, and it's unique to Guardian Druids. The durational stun effects are reduced by 25%. Basically, you combine this with something like Relentless or Gladiator's Medallion as a Guardian Druid, and you're always going to be really, really hard to stun lock. You're going to break out of stuns always really quickly. So moving on to row 4, and in the first slot we have our generic talent as Prickling Thorns. When your Entangling Roots or Cyclone is removed, dispelled, or ends, the target takes 100,000 damage. Considering how much damage we currently health pools we have, that's a large amount of damage, and I expect it will be nerfed slightly, especially since ending of a cyclone, so you're stuck in CC, and then afterwards you take like a quarter of your damage. Well, actually, at that level you might have a lot more health, but still, that's quite a lot of damage and seems a bit powerful. Next one in this slot is Feral only, and it's Pouncing Strike. Rake now has a 10-yard range and causes you to leap to the targets when used. Quite good when being kited, helps you stick to a target. Absolutely love it. And the final one is a Guardian unique in Den Mother. Your Iron Fur is also applied to the lowest health member of your party or raid within 0 yards. Anything that applies an effect to you and a party member is always really good, because you get double effect from something that's clearly quite powerful. Again, though, I don't know much about Druids, so I don't know how often you use Iron Fur in PvP, but I can imagine with a talent like this, it's quite a lot, and seems to be quite a good effect. The second slot in this tier, so in this row, so your choice of talent here, you have the generic Crescent Burn, using Moonfire on a target already affected by Moonfire's damage over time effect. Deals 35% additional damage. Part of me feels this might be balanced only, simply because I don't know if Feral gets access to Moonfire or anything, but it seems to be a nice effect. The Feral unique talent is Stampeding Roar. The Druid roars, increasing the movement speed of all friendly players within 10 yards by 60% for 8 seconds, which is a nice instant speed ability on 2-minute cooldown. Great in Battlegrounds, not so sure about arenas, but movement speed's always really good in PvP. And the final one, which is a Guardian one in this slot, is a passive called Protector of the Pack. 20% of all damage done to nearby allies is redirected to you. This effect is disabled when you fall below 35% health. Really good as a tank to make sure your party members stay alive, because you take a lot of the damage, and can be really instrumental in arenas and battlegrounds for winning the game. And in the final slot in this row, we have the first choice as Balance unique, which is Celestial Downpour. It's an instant which increases the damage of your Starfall by 30%. Given how it's instant, I can imagine it only lasts for a certain period of time, but I can imagine that's also quite a huge damage increase and looks like quite a cool ability. The Feral unique ability is Primal Vitality. When you enter Prowl, the cast time of your next healing touch is reduced by 100%. So when you stealth as a Feral Druid, you get a healing touch when you get to come out of form, unless you can cast it while in cat form, whatever. That seems like a really powerful ability and a really good way to self-heal repeatedly over long fights, especially in Arena when you get opportunity to break combat. Next up, we have the Guardian unique ability in this slot, which is Demoralizing Roar. It's an instant at 60-second cooldown, and it demoralizes all enemies within 10 yards, reducing the damage they do by 20% for 8 seconds. Again, this is a great Druid ability, tank ability. Reducing all damage done by everyone to everyone on your team is just great. The 8 seconds is relatively long. It's a really powerful ability, and we'll definitely see a lot of play. And the final one is Restoration Druids only. It's an instant at 45-second cooldown. It's Razor Thorns. Spout Thorns, dealing 300% of spell power, nature damage to attackers when hit. It replaces Thorns. All I can imagine is that it's basically more damage than Thorns. but it comes at the cost of, say, having any of the other abilities in this slot. Next, in the penultimate row, we have in the first slot, we have the Balance unique ability, Touch of the Stars. Healing Touch generates 15 astral power, which is the new resource. I can imagine this is quite good because it encourages you to heal, so you can do more damage. Absolutely good ability. The Feral unique ability in this slot is King of the Jungle. For every target you have Rip active on, your damage and movement speed is increased by 5%. Stacks up to 3 times. I can imagine this is absolutely going to be insane in Arena when you switch target just to keep this up. The large amount of damage bonus as well as a large movement speed bonus is going to help you stick to targets and help you swap targets. It's going to be a great talent to have. And the Guardian one in this slot is Deep Laceration, and Lacerate does 25% more damage. Again, if Lacerate is just a regular rotation ability you're using a lot in Arena, this is just a great talent. Simple talent for those who don't want to have a lot of activated abilities. It just makes you better at what you do. And the Restoration one is Nourish, which reduces the cast time of Healing Touch by 1 second and automatically applies Rejuvenation. I'd have to see how good this effect ability is, whether it's automatically applies Rejuvenation when you're casting Touch, or whether it does it passively to you all the time. I don't know. But again, it seems like quite a good ability. And then second slot in this row, we have the first choice of a Feral unique ability in Blood Trauma. It's an instant that increases main damage by 100%, but now incapacitates instead of stuns, and any attack will break the incapacitate. So it basically turns it into, say, a blind or gouge effect rather than a stun, which makes it a weaker form of CC, but does double damage, which I think is a good trade-off. The Guardian unique ability in this slot is Enraged Mangle, It's a 15 rage ability that replaces Mangle, and it mangles the target for up to 600% weapon damage in physical damage and deals an extra 20% against bleeding targets. I'm going to assume that the bonus over a regular Mangle is the 20% additional damage that gets bleeding, unless it just does more damage. Went for 600%. And the Restoration choice in this is Revitalize, When targets with a Rejuvenation hit by a melee critical attack, they'll be healed for 1 plus 200% of spell power, and the duration of Rejuvenation will be refreshed. This is quite good against certain classes and certain matchups. Assuming you have a chance to change talents in the queue. If you find up against like a crit heavy team, this is obviously a good ability to go to. Otherwise, I'm not sure how it pairs up against any of the others. And the final slot in this row is the first choice unique to Balance is Power in Periodic Empowerment. The periodic damage from Moonfire has a chance to grant Lunar Empowerment, and the periodic damage from Sunfire has a chance to grant Solar Empowerment. No idea what those buffs do currently myself, so unless they're already a buff that exists on the Druids, I have no idea how good this talent is. The Feral unique choice in this slot is Fury Swipes. Casting Thrash will remove the energy cost of your next swipe by 12 seconds, which seems to be a good ability. Allows you to do more damage because you're casting more often or activating abilities more often, which I guess will be good. And the Guardian unique ability in this slot is Sharpened Claws, which just increases your lacerate damage by 25%, but costs 150% rage. So costs 50% more than it did already. And the Restoration talent is Fortified Bark. Targets with your Iron Bark take 25% reduced chance to be critically hit. This is really good. Reducing the chance to be critically hit is always good, especially since it reduces the damage of certain classes or the certain abilities of server classes like Demon Hunters by quite a lot. And coming into the final row, we start with a Balance unique talent, which is Encroaching Vines. When your Entangling Roots is removed, dispelled, or ends, your target physical damage is reduced for 25%. Really good. I think could be quite broken with Prickling Thorns, because then they take so much extra damage and deal less damage, which is great. Guardian unique talent here in this slot is Rapid Thrashing. Thrash applies infected wounds to all targets, reducing movement speed by 50% for 6 seconds. Reducing movement speed is great in PvP because it allows you to stick to targets better. Probably better in Arena than Battlegrounds, but still very, very good. And the Restoration ability is Focus Growth. Your Life Bloom also applies Focus Growth to the target, increasing Life Bloom's healing by 15%. Stacks up to 3 times. I imagine this is really good because it just increases your healing on a target, which is what you want in Restoration as a PvP player. Second slot in the final row, balance unique choice is Summer Solstice, which just reduces the cooldown of Solar Beam by 300 seconds. Maybe it makes it instant or reduces it from 10 to 5 minutes, which I guess is what it probably does, which makes it playable in Arena. The Feral one is Fresh Wound, which Rake has 60% increased critical strike chance if used on target. Doesn't already have Rake active, which encourages swapping. Guardian, Entangling Claws. Entangling Roots is now an instant cast spell with a 6-second cooldown. It can also be cast in shapeshift forms. This seems to be a very powerful ability. And the Restoration one in this slot is Early Spring. Wild Growth is now an instant cast, which again seems really, really good. In the final slot then, in the final row, Cyclone is the balance unique ability, which is basically just Cyclone from other forms, from other games. So it does say it can be cast in Trio Life form and Mugen form. Feral is Rip and Tear, 60 energy instant cast ability with 60-second cooldown, which applies Rake and Rip to the target, which is great. Guardian's ability is Overrun, which charged an enemy, stunning them for 3 seconds and knocking back their allies, which again is good for helping you solo someone and disrupting healing and just doing a lot of interruption. And the Restoration unique one is Overgrowth, which is an instant speed cast, 45-second, 40-yard range ability, which instantly applies Regrowth, Life Bloom, Rejuvenation, and Wild Growth to the target. Overall, these seem to be very fair, really fun abilities. I hope Druids players who know more feel encouraged by these. We have to say that a lot of slots that don't seem to have talents for certain classes or specs probably just haven't had the talent in that slot data mined. As I said, everything's subject to change and Heavy's amount of it. But anyway, I hope you really enjoyed this video. A link to all the information here will be in the description below. If you did enjoy this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to see more of my videos coming in the future, and I hope you'll see you next time.